Well, again, can you repeat the question just to make certain that I have it accurate? I'd have to look more closely at the statute.
I just read it to you.
I'm trying to find that citation, Congressman. I'm just going to leave it in, as it appears in the report. Just going to refer you to the report, if I could, for review of that episode. And what was the question, sir, if I might? I again go back to the text of the report. I don't want to speculate. That's what the report says. Yeah, the report. Well, I rely on the wording of the report. Let me back up a second, if I could, and say, as I said earlier, with regard to the steel, that's beyond my purview. Well, what I think is missing here is the fact that this is under investigation elsewhere in the Justice Department. And if I can finish, sir, and consequently it's not within my purview, Department of Justice and FBI should be responsive to questions on this particular issue. As I said before, and I'll say again, it's not my purview. Others are investigating what.
Attorney number 2 in the Inspector General's report and Strzok both worked on your team, didn't they?
Pardon me? Can you ask?
They both worked on your team, didn't they?
I know. I heard Strzok. Who else were you talking about?
Attorney number 2 identified in the Inspector General's report.
Okay. And the question was?
Did he work for you? The guy who said "Viva la resistance."
Peter Strzok worked for me for a period of time. Yes. That would be.
Let me refer you
to the report.
So it's not your purview to look into whether or not Steele's lying. It's not your purview to look into whether or not anti-Trump Russians are lying to Steele. And it's not your purview to look at whether or not Glenn Simpson was meeting with the Russians the day before and the day after you write 3,500 words about the Trump campaign meeting.
And that's an area which I cannot get into. And where do you have that quote?
Page 90, volume 2. There's evidence that the president knew he should not have made those calls to McGahn, close quote.
I see that, yes, that's accurate. I'm sorry, what's the citation, sir?
Page 91.
Of the second volume?
Yes.
I'm not going to get into what we may or may not have included in our investigation.
Okay. And at this time, Mr. Sessions was still recused from oversight of your investigation, correct?
I'm sorry, could you restate
The Attorney
that?
General was recused from oversight.
Yes. Well, I'm not going to get into the subsidiary details. I just refer you again to page 91, 92 of the report, according to what we gathered for the report. Can you remind me which paragraph you're adverting to?
Top of page 2.
On 2?
Volume 1.
And exactly which paragraph are you looking at on 2?
The investigation did not establish.
Of course. I see it. Yes.
See it?
What was your question? I don't have any, I don't have any knowledge of that occurring.
You don't have any knowledge or you don't recall?
I don't have any knowledge.
Evidence also suggests.
Given that what I saw you do, are you questioning that?
Well, I just find it intriguing. Let me just tell you that there's evidence that suggests that that phone call took place and that that's what was said.
I've gone into waters that don't allow me to give you an answer to that particular question. It relates to the internal discussions he would have in terms of indicting an individual. I can't get into the discussions on that. I do not recall. They have a different case.
Do you want to sign that letter, Director Mueller?
They have a different case. That is in the report, and I rely what's in the report to indicate what's happened in the paragraphs that we've been discussing. I'm not going to get into that at this juncture.
Okay.
Well, I'm not going to go further in terms of discussing. I'm not going to go into the ins and outs. I'm not going to go in the ins and outs of what we had in the course of our investigation.
Did you interview Konstantin Kalemnik?
Pardon?
Did you interview Konstantin Kalemnik?
I can't go into the discussion of our investigative moves. Well, I'm not going to get into that any further than I already have. What was the question? If it's in the report as stated, yes, it is right. I can't speak to that. I can't speak to that. I would say I rely on what's in the report. I would have to look at it more closely before I said I agree with it.
Were you ever fired, Mr. Mueller, from
Was I what?
Were you ever fired as special counsel, Mr. Mueller?
No.
No. I'd like to know how many times you cited the Washington Post in your report.
How many times I what?
Cited the Washington Post in your report.
I do not have knowledge of that
Yeah.
figure, but well, that's it. I don't have knowledge of that figure. Now, I'd refer you to the court proceedings on that issue. If it's in the report, I support it as it is set forth. I'm not going to answer that.
Okay.
I'm not going to get into
Okay.
to that. I can't speak to that. I'm not going to talk to that. I'm not going to speak to that. I don't disagree with it necessarily, but I'm not going to speak to any more to that issue. That's the way we have it in the report. Well, I understand it's in the report, and I support it as being in the report. I'm not going to delve more into the details of what happened. If it's in the report, then I'm supportive because it's already been reviewed and appropriately appears in the report. That's what was written in the report. Yes, I'm not going to be involved in a discussion on that at this juncture. I'm not going to get in and delve into
Well, let me read from that. Maybe it'll
May I
refresh
just
your memory.
finish? May I just finish
Yes.
my answer to say that I'm not going to get involved in a discussion on that. I will refer you to that citation that you gave me at the outset for the lengthy discussion on just what you're talking about, and to the extent that I have anything to say about it, it is what we've already put into the report. Again, I refer you to the report. I refer you to our lengthy dissertation on exactly those issues that appears in at the end of the report. I apologize.
Sure.
Can you start it again? Are you referring to the report or some other public record? If it's in the report, I support it. If it's from the report, it is correct. I'm sorry, could you repeat that one? Don't recall that one. I'm not going to speak to that. That was outside our purview. I'm not going to speak to that. I'm sorry. What was the question? As I said at the outset, that is one of the investigations that is being handled by others in the Department of Justice. I'm not going to answer that. Well, as I said at the outset this morning, that was one of the investigations that I could not speak to. I have nothing to add. I would like some demarcation of that which is applicable to this, but also in such a way that it does not hinder the other prosecution that is taking place in D.C. I feel uncomfortable discussing anything having to do with the Stone prosecution. Well, I'm not going to speculate. I think you're asking for me to speculate, given a set of circumstances.
Well,
I'm not going to discuss that.
Peter Strzok testified before this committee on July 12, 2018, that he was fired because you were concerned about preserving the appearance of independence. Do you agree with this testimony?
Say that again, if you could.
He said he was fired at least partially because you were worried about concerned about preserving the appearance of independence with the special counsel's investigation. Do you agree with that statement?
The statement was by whom?
Peter Strzok at this hearing.
And I am not familiar with that. Don't know when I found that out. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to answer that. I don't have it in front of me. I take your word. I'm not going to talk about recommendations. I'm not going to talk about that issue. I'm not going to get into that's a little bit off track. And I have to say that the letter itself speaks for itself. Again, I rely on the letter itself for its terms.
What were some of the specifics that you thought?
I direct you to the letter itself.
Okay.
Not generally. Again, I go back to the letter, and the letter speaks for itself. And I don't feel comfortable speculating on that. I'm not going to speak to what the Attorney General was thinking or saying. I can't answer that question in the vacuum. I'm not going to speculate. You're reading into what we have written in the report. I'm going to pass on that.
Yeah.
Accurate recitation from the report. I'm not going to comment on that. I'm not going to try to explain that. I'm not going to comment.
Which president appointed you to become the United States Attorney for Massachusetts?
Which senator?
Which president?
Oh, which president? I think that was President Bush.
According to my notes, it was President Ronald Reagan had the honor to do so. Under whose
My
administration?
mistake.